My bare feet trembled so close to those thick live cables that it was as if I could feel death breathing on the soles of my feet. The air smelled of burnt metal, a smell that scratched my throat with every breath, mixed with the cold sweat that ran down my back. The hum of the electricity sounded like a hungry animal, waiting for me to get a little closer. I didn't understand the numbers flashing on the panel, but the panic etched on my companions' faces said it all. Nobody was getting out of there alive. Commander R approached me from behind and gave me a shove that almost made me fall directly onto the wires. His breath, a mixture of tobacco and hatred, burned the back of my neck. "Hurry up, traitor, or tomorrow your son will be stepping on this thing, and he won't even have a chance to beg." Those words pierced my chest more than any torture I had ever endured. I closed my eyes tightly and felt my tears carving clean trails through the accumulated grime on my face. Around me, sparks crackled like small explosions, while dozens of people watched, waiting for my body to fall and writhe. With a trembling voice, almost silenced by fear, I could only stammer, "Jesus, if my story ends here, take me with you. But if there is still something you want to do through me, then show them who you are. Show them that you are real." I had nothing left, only faith, a tight, weak, but alive faith, and it was there, on that thread between life and death, that everything began to change. My name is Minopark. I am 34 years old, although the mirror says otherwise. It seems I have lived half a century and half the time. What I want to share is not a story of courage, because I had none that day. It is the testimony of an ordinary woman, broken, afraid of dying, and even more afraid of failing her son. But it is also the testimony of how God entered the darkest place I have ever known and transformed torture into a miracle. I was born on March 3, 1985, in the port city of Chongyun, in the far north of North Korea. Growing up there meant learning early on that the cold of the sea cuts the skin like a blade, and that hunger isn't a sensation, it's a companion. We lived in a tiny apartment, shared with 2 other families, 9 people crammed into 40 square meters, with a bathroom that only worked a few days a week. The rest was improvisation and survival. My father worked in the coal mines. He would leave while it was still dark and return exhausted, covered in a black dust that seemed to have become a part of him. His cough, I can still hear it to this day. It was the kind of cough that makes you think your body is trying to expel its own life force. One day, he simply didn't come back. They said it was an accident. We knew it was exhaustion. In that system, a person is valued as long as they produce. When they stop, they disappear. My mother, a small woman but strong as steel, cleaned party offices. She earned so little that the money only bought a few handfuls of rice a month. The rest of what we ate came from a small piece of land behind the building, or from hidden barter deals in the black market. When I turned 15, 3 years after losing my father, I was sent directly to textile factory number 26. There, nobody chose anything. Not work, not future, not life. To question meant to disappear. And it was from this path of misery, oppression, and fear that God took me, to show me that He saw me, even when I thought I had been forgotten by the whole world. The factory where I worked was a 5-story gray giant, with broken windows that let in the icy wind without asking permission. In winter, the air cut through the skin as if it were alive, and the walls always had damp patches that never quite dried. It was a place where hope seemed to evaporate with every breath. More than 2,000 women worked there, from skinny 14-year-old girls to ladies so old that their hands trembled just trying to hold a needle. We sewed military uniforms nonstop, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. There was no rest, no excuse, no room for failure. The noise of the machines was so loud that sometimes I would go home hearing that sound even when everything was quiet. The air was heavy, laden with lint that accumulated in the nose, hair, and especially the lungs. I saw women coughing up blood and trying to hide it, because those who became too ill simply disappeared overnight, and no one ever asked questions. There I quickly learned the invisible rules of survival. Never confront the supervisors. Always keep your head down. Deliver your quota, no matter the cost. And above all, never open your heart. Feelings were dangerous. Thoughts were a weapon against yourself. Silence was the only protection we had. Obedience was the only path allowed. It was in this suffocating environment that I met Ji-hun. I was 18 years old. He worked in maintenance, always with a wrench in his hand, and his gaze fixed on the machines, almost as if he preferred talking to them than to people. He was quiet, but there was a discreet gentleness in his gestures, and that, in that place, was already a lot. We got married 6 months later, not out of passion, but because that's what people did. Because facing life alone was riskier than sharing a roof with someone you barely knew. Our son, Timing, was born 2 years later, on June 15, 2011. The birth was a mixture of pain, fear, and improvisation. A hospital without anesthesia, broken equipment, and nurses so exhausted they could barely keep their eyes open. But when they placed that tiny baby in my arms, everything around me, the cold, the hunger, the factory, faded away for a second. In his eyes, so dark and so alive, I found a purpose I had never felt before. I started singing to him the songs my mother used to sing to me. I invented stories about magical forests and mountains he would never see there. And every night, while he slept in the crib we improvised from wooden crates, I cried softly, not wanting to wake him. I cried thinking about the future that awaited him, a future I myself would have preferred not to have known. But then, when Timing was only 4 months old, something happened that changed everything. Something small, hidden, almost insignificant at first glance, but that turned my life upside down. It was October 2011. The monthly distribution of rations had just taken place. It was always the same humiliating ritual. Hours in line, forced thanks to the benevolent leader, and a bag of rice that never lasted the whole month. Ours came in a patched, old, poorly sewn bag, like almost everything else in the country. When I got home and poured the rice into the metal container, I heard something hit the floor. It wasn't rice. It was paper. Several yellowed sheets of paper, carefully folded, their edges worn as if they had traveled through many hands before reaching me. And at that moment, without understanding why, I felt that God was about to speak to me for the first time. Ji-hoon was on the night shift, and little Time slept soundly, breathing with that soft sound only babies make. I stood there, clutching the pages with trembling hands, staring intently at the door as if, at any moment, someone might break it down and drag me out. My education had been the bare minimum, enough to read factory instructions and advertising posters. Even so, I forced myself to decipher the faded words, and what I managed to understand made my heart stop for a second. In the beginning was the Word, for God so loved the world. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. I had to reread it to make sure I wasn't imagining things. God? Love? Rest? These were completely foreign ideas to someone who grew up hearing that there was only the supreme leader and that the only possible destiny was to work until there was nothing left of you. I didn't understand any of it. Who was this God who loved the world? What was an only begotten son? Why would anyone offer rest to people like me? Exhausted, dirty, insignificant. But at the same time, something so deep inside me reacted to those words as if I were recognizing a voice I had never heard, but had always sought. It wasn't a military order. It wasn't propaganda. It was personal. It was intimate. It was as if someone was seeing me for the first time in their life. I hid those pages inside our straw mattress, the only place that seemed even remotely safe. And every night, when Ji-hoon finally fell asleep from exhaustion and Time breathed peacefully in his makeshift crib, I would pull out that crumpled paper and read it in the dim moonlight. I could barely pronounce a few words, so I whispered very softly, just loud enough for my heart to hear. That's when it began. A senseless peace began to take shape within me. Nothing in my life had changed. The hunger, the fear, the factory, everything remained the same. But inside my chest, something felt less heavy. It was as if a spark, so small it was almost invisible, had ignited amidst my despair. I kept this secret for 3 months. 3 months during which those pages were my hidden treasure. 3 months whispering to that God I didn't know, asking if he was real, if he saw me, if he could ever answer. And he answered. It was January 2012. I was in the factory bathroom, washing my hands in water so cold it felt like it was cutting my skin. The rusty faucet made that mournful sound, as if it were about to give up too. When the door creaked, an older woman entered. Her name was Sun Hye. She was in her 50s, with completely gray hair tied in a tight bun and hands deformed by decades of repetitive work. But what always caught my attention about her were her eyes. While most of us walked around with dull, lifeless gazes, Sun seemed to carry a light that didn't make sense in that place. She stopped beside me, pretending to wash her hands, but watching me through the cracked mirror hanging on the wall. It was a look that pierced my soul, as if she knew exactly what I was hiding, even though we had never exchanged a deeper word. And there, in that cold, smelly bathroom, God began to reveal what was to come. She leaned a little closer, and in a whisper so faint it seemed the wind might carry it away, uttered the words that made my blood run cold. "You found the pages, too, didn't you?" My heart pounded so hard it almost hurt. For a moment, I was sure my end had come. How could she know? Had someone seen me reading? Had they moved the mattress? Was all this a trap set to make me confess? Fear must have been etched on my face, because Sun placed her hand on mine with a gentleness that made no sense in that place. Her touch was warm, firm, almost maternal. "Don't be afraid, my daughter," she murmured, glancing quickly at the door to make sure no one was around. "You're not alone. You never have been." I wanted to deny it. I wanted to run. My head kept repeating it. Say no. Say no. Tell her she's wrong. But my mouth wouldn't move. The way she looked at me, as if she really saw me, dismantled all my defenses. "I've been watching you," Sun continued, her eyes soft with emotion. "You've changed. In these last few months, there's something different about you. A peace. A light. I know that peace well, Mino. It only comes from him. From Jesus. The Son of God. The Savior you read about in those pages." The tears came without me being able to stop them. I didn't cry from sadness. I cried from relief. Someone else knew. Someone else believed. I wasn't going crazy. I wasn't imagining that feeling inside me. Sun quickly wiped away my tears with the sleeve of her uniform, like a mother does with a child. "Listen carefully," she said, lowering her voice even more. "Tonight, when the moon is at its highest point, go to the old coal depot behind building number 3. Knock 3 times. Wait. Then knock 2 more times. Do you understand?" I nodded, unable to respond. "And, Mino," she squeezed my hand so hard I could feel her heart pounding. "Take the pages. It's time for you to know the rest of the story." That night seemed endless. I was so nervous I could barely breathe. I waited until Ji-hoon drifted into the deep sleep that came after 12 hours of maintenance. I checked to see if time was still asleep, listening to that gentle breathing that always calmed me. Then, with the pages carefully hidden inside my clothes, I left the apartment at 2 a.m. The streets of Chongyin were terrifyingly silent at that hour. The cold seemed to have teeth. I huddled in the shadows, walking close to the walls, holding my breath every time I heard footsteps in the distance. A night patrol could mean prison, or worse. This journey, which normally takes 5 minutes, seemed to last an eternity. The coal depot was an abandoned building, a dark and crooked structure that everyone avoided. They said it would collapse at any moment. To me that night, it looked like a sleeping monster. I found the back door. I knocked 3 times. Absolute silence. My heart pounded in my chest. Then I knocked twice. The latch moved without a creak, and the door opened just enough for a lit candle to appear. It was Sun. "Quickly," she murmured, pulling me inside. We descended a wooden staircase that protested with every step. The smell was a mixture of mold, old charcoal, and damp earth. Down below, in the basement, 3 candles cast shadows that danced on the walls, and seated around them were 7 people, men and women of different ages. I recognized 2 faces from the factory. I had never seen the others, but they all looked at me the same way, as if they were seeing someone they had been expecting. And then I saw, right in the center of the circle, wrapped in a dirty, carefully folded cloth, was something that took my breath away. A Bible. Not a single leaf wasted. Not half a page hidden in a bag of rice. A small, whole Bible, with pages as thin as cigarette paper. Its black cover so worn it almost crumbled between the fingers. My legs felt weak. It wasn't possible. Not in that country. Not in that place. And in that instant, I understood. God wasn't just calling me. He was leading me. A book like that, an entire Bible, was practically a death sentence in North Korea. Just touching it was worth less than a sack of coal. Even so, there it was, as real as the fear I felt. Sun guided me to the circle and said in a low voice but full of reverence, "Brothers and sisters, this is Mincio. The pages reached her 3 months ago. God brought her to us." A gray-haired gentleman with a sparse beard stood up slowly. His eyes were so deep they seemed to hold stories I would never dare to imagine. He took my hands in his, rough, bruised hands, but incredibly soft at that moment. "I am Kwan," he said. "Welcome, sister. Welcome to God's family." I sat there with them, trembling, trying to breathe, while the candles cast shadows on the wall that seemed to dance along with our fears. For the next 3 hours, they told me a story that seemed too impossible to be invented, and yet so true that it pierced any resistance within me. They spoke of Jesus, A man who lived more than 2,000 years ago, who was not born among the rich, but in a simple place, surrounded by animals, who did not seek power through force, but by touching broken people, healing the sick, feeding the hungry, embracing those whom no one wanted to touch. They spoke of the day he was betrayed, tortured, and crucified, but also of the day he defeated death itself and resurrected. And most importantly, they told me something I had never heard in my life. He did not come to build a country or impose an ideology. He came to liberate those imprisoned from within, to heal broken hearts, to give hope where there was nothing but ashes. They said I was loved not for what she produced, not because of my usefulness, not because of my obedience, but that's because I had been created by God, and He wanted me back. I started to cry, not the sad tears I was used to, but tears of liberation, as if someone had lifted a weight I had carried since the day I was born. I had spent my whole life hearing that I was nothing, a replaceable part in a giant machine. But there, in a dirty, damp basement, a group of strangers told me that I was worth so much that the creator of the universe gave His only son for me. Is this really true? I asked, choking back a sob. Is all of this real? Kwan smiled with a tenderness I had never seen in a man. It was like the smile I imagined a father might give if I had truly known mine. More real than anything the world has ever told you to believe, Minso, he replied. More real than fear, more real than pain, more real than death itself. It was that night, in that cold, rat-infested hole, with the constant risk of being discovered and executed, that I surrendered my life to Jesus. I didn't know everything. I understood almost nothing, but something inside me knew that this was the truth worth dying for. The 6 years that followed were like living in two completely different worlds. During the day, I was just another worker in the factory. I sewed, met quotas, sang the required songs, and participated in the indoctrination meetings like everyone else. It was a mask I needed to wear to survive, but on Thursday mornings at 3 o'clock, I became who I truly was. I would sneak out of the house, walk among the shadows, and silently descend the stairs of that forgotten warehouse. And there, hidden in the darkness, we found a light that no regime could extinguish. We learned to pray together. At first, I found it strange to talk to someone I couldn't see, but over time, that presence became more real to me than the shouts of the factory supervisors. I began to hear his voice, not with my ears, but in my spirit, like a quiet assurance arising from the chaos. We memorized every verse of the Bible by repeating it to each other, because no one was allowed to take even a scrap of paper home. If they found anything written, it was prison or execution. But even so, we were learning. We kept everything in our hearts, and that gave us the strength to continue living where no one should be forced to live. We had to hide every word inside ourselves, not in our pockets, not in some hiding place, but in our hearts. It was the only place the regime couldn't search. Sun taught us memorization techniques as if he were passing on a life or death legacy. And soon, each of us carried dozens of verses in our minds, like small flames lit inside dark caves. I recited them while sewing, when sleep almost overcame me, when hunger seemed to dig a hole in my stomach. Those words reminded me who I was, and above all, to whom I belonged. Sun became a kind of spiritual mother to me. She taught me to see God in the little corners of life that I previously considered insignificant. In Taim's crooked smile when I sang to him, in the stubborn song of a bird that insisted on surviving the brutal winter, in the small piece of bread that, miraculously, seemed to yield a little more than usual. God is in the details, Mincio, she would say. He hides even where no one thinks to look for him. Our small group grew slowly. 8 became 12. 12 became 17. Each new person was a gift, and also a risk, another heart to love, another mouth that could, under fear or torture, betray us. But the truth is, the more I grew, the more I realized how the light spread even in places where the darkness seemed absolute. And after all, Jesus had warned that his light could not be hidden under a table. I, who used to be afraid of my own shadow, began to grow bold, perhaps even reckless, but something inside me told me it was no longer time to back down. It was in January 2019 that something inside me finally overflowed. During one of our secret meetings, Kwan read John 3:16 with a firmness that seemed to cut through the air. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. Those words struck my chest like thunder. Eternal life. In a land where life barely lasted long enough to serve the state, someone was offering me eternity. In a place where everything could be taken from you, someone was offering me something that could never be confiscated. I want to take him with me, I said, with a determination I didn't even know I possessed. This verse. I want to carry it with me, not just in my head, but in my body. I want to be able to touch it when fear tries to swallow me. Sun frowned, worried like a mother watching her child approach a cliff. Minso, my dear, it's too risky. If anyone finds him, I interrupted, let him find me with the truth. I'm tired of hiding, tired of living like this, with my eyes downcast, expecting the worst. Jesus said the truth would set us free. I want to be free, son, even if it costs me everything. When I got home that morning, sleep just wouldn't come. I grabbed my little sewing kit, needle, thread, the old scissors that weren't cutting straight anymore, and sat down by the window, where the faint moonlight still streamed in. I put on my gray uniform, the same one that had been with me for almost 20 years, and turned the inside hem of the jacket up. With slow, almost ceremonial movements, I began to embroider, stitch by stitch, letter by letter. I wrote John 3:16 in Korean all along the edge. It took almost 4 hours. The thread was too rough for the thick fabric, and my hands weren't delicate. They were a worker's hands, but each stitch was like a prayer. Each little prick of the needle on my fingertip was like saying to God, I trust in you. No matter what happens, I trust. When I finished, I kissed the hem, as if I were blessing that simple, clandestine work. Lord, I whispered, I don't know what awaits me, but if whatever comes serves to make someone believe, then so be it. For 7 weeks, I walked through the factory with the gospel literally stitched onto my body. 7 weeks with my heart racing every time a supervisor came too close. 7 weeks repeating that verse mentally whenever fear tightened my throat. And yet, for the first time in my life, I felt free. I had a habit of touching the hem of my own jacket whenever I felt fear tightening its grip on my chest. It was such a discreet gesture that no one noticed, but to me it meant life. That verse, stitched with blood and hope, reminded me that even in that place where the soul was crushed daily, God would not leave me lost. He was with me. But in North Korea, secrets don't last. The system seems to have eyes in the corners of the walls, ears on the ground, and claws ready to snatch away any spark of freedom before it turns into flame. And that's how, on February 12, 2019, at exactly 2:47 p.m., everything collapsed. Supervisor Park, a woman as dry as a dead branch and as hard as iron, approached me during my inspection shift. Her footsteps echoed across the concrete floor like hammer blows announcing a trial. She was known for her coldness and cruel loyalty to the party. She had risen through the ranks by betraying her own sister. This was the kind of person the system produced and applauded. Your work has been declining in quality, she said, although we both knew it was a lie. My numbers have always been impeccable. She picked up one of the jackets I had just folded and began to examine it with frightening precision. She ran her fingers along the seams, as if searching for a crime hidden among the threads. Then she set the garment aside, raised her chin, and stared at me. Take off your uniform. I want to see where these mistakes are coming from. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was an order, not a request. And if I didn't obey, the guards would be called in seconds. Around me, the other women lowered their heads, all at once, like a field of wheat bending before a storm. It wasn't indifference. It was self-preservation. In that country, compassion is a luxury that can cost a life. With trembling hands, I began to unbutton the jacket. It was as if each button that came undone tore a piece of my own breath away. When I finally removed the jacket, Park snatched it from my hands, eager, hungry to find something that would condemn me. She examined the collar, the pockets, the inside. Then her fingers traced down, inch by inch, until they reached the bottom hem, precisely where I had embroidered John 3:16. I felt the air leave the room. With the tip of her fingernail, she began to pull at the stitches. First one, then another, and the stitching came undone as if she were tearing out every prayer I had ever secretly uttered. The room was so silent I could hear my own heart pounding in my ears. Then, finally, the embroidery appeared. Park read aloud, savoring each word with calculated venom. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. When she finished, she lifted her face and stared at me with a crooked smile, the kind of smile someone gives when they believe they've found the ultimate prize, as if she had captured something more valuable than a criminal, a threat to the system itself. At that moment, I knew that my life, as I knew it, was over. "So we have a believer among us," Park announced, raising her voice so all the women in the room could hear. "A traitor who placed a foreign god above our supreme leader. An infiltrator who dared to bring Western poison into our workplace." She lifted my jacket as if displaying a war trophy. Before I could even breathe, she yelled for guards. 2 armed men entered without hesitation, as if they had been prepared for this. Each one gripped one of my arms so tightly that my joints protested with painful cracking. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like they were made of water. "Take this enemy in for questioning," Park declared, still holding my embroidered jacket, "and let them all see the fate of those who abandon their homeland in exchange for superstitions." As they dragged me out of the room, I heard muffled sobs behind me. Some women were crying softly, others didn't even lift their eyes. Among the motionless faces, I recognized 2 of the sisters from our secret group. The pain in their eyes almost overwhelmed me, but I couldn't look back. I didn't have that right. All I could think about was my son, my little Tim, only 8 years old. What would they say to him? Would they call him the son of a traitor? Would they take him away too? "Sir, please, protect my boy," I whispered so softly I could barely hear myself. "Do whatever you want with me, but protect my son." One of the guards struck me in the mouth with the back of his hand, as if he had heard my prayer and wanted to crush it right there. The taste of blood spread across my tongue. "God doesn't exist here," he growled. "Here, there is only the justice of the revolution, and you're going to learn that today." I was pushed down the stairs, through a corridor that seemed endless. We descended into the bowels of the factory, to places that ordinary workers never saw, places made to destroy people, not to fix them. Each step seemed to lead deeper into an abyss where light and hope did not exist. Even so, as my feet pounded on the cold concrete, something strange happened inside me. That gentle peace, which I already knew from the nights hidden in the basement, began to fill me. It was small, but real. I was terrified, and at the same time, inexplicably accompanied. I knew Jesus was with me, not because I felt strong, but because I felt I wasn't alone. The metal door swung open and I was thrown into a tiny room. My body hit the icy floor, gasping for air. The echo of the door closing sounded like a verdict. The place was grim, bare concrete walls, a dirty lamp hanging by a wire, trembling and flickering as if about to die. In the center, a metal chair fastened to the floor, waiting for me. The smell was nauseating. Old blood, sour sweat. Fear hung in the air, almost palpable. I lost all sense of time in there. Hours, minutes, days? In the basement of interrogations, time doesn't exist. They take that away from you, along with any other point of reference that might keep you grounded. When the door finally opened, the man who entered seemed made of stone, early 40-something. Impeccable uniform, hair so stiff with gel it didn't even move. His eyes, hard, hollow. The eyes of someone who had seen many break, and who was ready to see another. The badge on his chest shone. Commander R. He sat down slowly, unhurriedly, like someone with all the time in the world to destroy a soul. He lit a cigarette and blew the smoke in my direction, never taking his eyes off me, as if I were an experiment about to react. And so began my interrogation, the first of many. He stared at me like someone observing an insect trapped under glass. Without haste, he unfolded a crumpled card and began to read, as if reciting a sentence. Minseo Park, 34 years old, employee at textile factory, number 26, since the age of 15. Married to Ji-hun Park, mother of an 8-year-old boy. Every word about my family felt like a direct hit, as if he were plunging a knife into my chest and slowly twisting it. Impeccable record, she continued. 19 years without a single note, without a single complaint. A model citizen. He slammed the file shut. And now this. Religious propaganda. Betrayal. I remained motionless. I remembered every instruction that Sun and the others repeated. If captured, protect your brothers. Don't betray anyone. Not under duress. Not under threat. Nothing. R lit another cigarette, took a deep drag, and blew the smoke in my direction. I'm going to ask you some very simple questions, he said, and you're going to have the intelligence to answer them. He leaned forward. Who gave you the verse? Silence. How many people are involved? Silence. Where are you two located? Nothing. His patience drained away like gasoline about to ignite. He stood up slowly, walked around the chair, and stopped behind me. I felt his breath on the back of my neck, heavy, calculated. Do you have any idea how many people have passed through this room? He murmured. Do you know how many have left? I didn't answer, but we both knew. Nobody. We break them all of them, he whispered. They talk. They betray entire families. Then they go to a labor camp and disappear. We drag the bodies away and nobody ever asks again. I closed my eyes and began to pray in the only way my heart could. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And there, in that place where everything smelled of death, something inexplicable happened. A gentle peace, almost impossible, began to fill my chest. It wasn't courage. It wasn't strength. It was presence, as if someone were right there with me, between me and that man. R noticed. He took a step back as if he had sensed something he didn't understand. Why are you smiling? He asked, annoyed. Only then did I realize that my lips had curved into a small, involuntary smile. Because I'm not alone, I replied softly. He exploded. He slammed both hands on the table, making the metal tremble beneath me. You are completely alone, she cried. Your family can't save you. Your friends can't save you. And this invented God can't save you either. For the first time, I lifted my face and looked directly into his eyes. My God is more real than this room, I whispered. And he has already saved me, no matter what you do. The blow came like lightning. I didn't even see his fist coming. My head snapped to the side. A buzzing sound filled my ears, and the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. Let's try again, he said, now with a chilling calm. Who else is contaminated by this garbage? I spat blood on the ground. Nobody, just me. He laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. That's a lie. He took a step forward. You don't embroider an entire verse without learning it from someone. Who was it? Sun, Old Quan, the mechanic Canaan, how many more? My heart froze when I heard their names. And there, in that brief, deadly pause, I knew the spiritual battle I had asked to face had finally arrived. He knew who they were. There was no longer any doubt. When I heard the names slip from his lips, my stomach dropped. If he knew that, what else did he know? I don't know those people, I replied, even though I knew my lie was as weak as my strength at that moment. The smile that appeared on his face was that of someone who took pleasure in shattering hopes. Of course you know, he said, crossing his arms with feigned calm. We've been watching you for months. Meetings at the coal depot, Thursdays, 3 a.m. At the last one, 17 members. My world spun. They were never hidden. We were never safe, but we haven't arrested them yet, he continued, savoring each word, because we want something bigger. The leaders, those who bring Bibles from China, the whole network, and you're going to help us get to them. With every step he took across the room, I felt fear tightening in my chest. I don't know what you're talking about, I murmured, even though I was trembling. He smiled again, and this time, he took something out of the folder, a photograph. He placed it slowly on the table, as if it were part of a cruel ritual. My heart stopped. He was my son, Tim, walking to school that same day, his patched backpack swaying on his back and his uniform far too big for him. What a handsome boy, R said, running her finger across the image as if threatening without touching. 8 years old, innocent. It would be a tragedy if he were punished for his mother's sins. My tears came uncontrollably. I couldn't hold them back. Please, I stammered. He has nothing to do with this. He's just a child. Exactly, he replied, his voice as soft as poison. A child who deserves to have her mother back. A mother who cooperates. I was imploding inside. It wasn't just pain. It was a conflict tearing my soul apart. The chance to hold my son again was right there, almost within reach, offered like poisoned bait. I just need you to tell me where the complete Bible is, R insisted, leaning toward me. Tell me who else keeps texts. Give me all the names. You spend a few months in a re-education center and come back home. Easy. I wanted to say yes. God knows I wanted this. I wanted it out of instinct, out of desperation, out of love for my boy. But then something gentle and firm welled up inside me. It didn't come from my thoughts, nor from my courage. It came from a deeper place, from a voice I had already learned to recognize even when everything around me screamed the opposite. Do not fear, for I am with you. My breath returned. My vision, which had been blurred, seemed to clear. I lifted my face, still wet with tears, still bleeding, still weak, but with a strength that wasn't my own. "You can take everything from me," she said, her voice hoarse but firm. "You can take my husband, my son, my life, but you can't take Jesus from me, and I will not betray my brothers." R stood motionless, as if he were hearing something unexpected. Then he took a deep breath and gave a slight nod. "Very well," he said without emotion. We tried to be reasonable. He left the room, and then the real 6 o'clock hour began. I can't, and perhaps never will, put into words what that was like. There is suffering that no language can encompass. The human body endures horrors that the mind would never admit it could tolerate. And when everything inside you says it's over, that you can't take it anymore, that it's impossible to endure another second, that's when God makes himself most present. There were moments when I screamed until I had no voice left, when my hands trembled uncontrollably, when my mind begged to give in, to open my mouth and reveal every name. But always, at the exact moment before I break down, he was coming. That gentle peace, like a blanket that doesn't belong in the place, that presence I couldn't see but felt pressed against me like someone holding a terrified child in the dark. And because of that, I held on. Just one more minute, just one more second, just one more breath. That's how I survived. On the second day, they didn't even try to feign mercy. They didn't give me a drop of water. My lips began to crack like dry earth, the skin opening into small fissures that burned every time I breathed. My tongue seemed too big for my mouth, and the metallic taste of thirst overwhelmed everything. My body trembled uncontrollably. When R returned, he was carrying a glass of water so cold that droplets were running down the sides. I had never seen anything so simple seem so precious, and so cruel. He placed the glass on the table, close enough to torture me, far enough away that I couldn't reach it. "Just sign," he said, sliding a crumpled sheet of paper toward me. "One signature, and the water is yours." I leaned forward. My vision was so blurry that the words seemed to dance, but I forced my dry eyes to focus. I acknowledged that I was deceived by Western religious propaganda. I renounce my belief. I couldn't continue. My voice came out as a whisper. "No." Before I could finish, he turned the glass upside down. The water trickled down to the floor in a crystal clear stream. I followed it, as if my body could absorb it just by looking, but it spread across the cold concrete and disappeared into the cracks. That water was my freedom, flowing away and disappearing forever. On the third day, they returned with a different strategy. Photos. Not just Tim's, but everyone's. Ji-hun, my husband, working on the assembly line. My mother, walking slowly to the market with trembling hands. Sun Hai entering the factory. Kwan in his tiny apartment. R spread each photo out on the table as if he were assembling a macabre jigsaw puzzle. "They'll all pay," he said, almost casually. "Your husband will be sent to the mines. Your mother, well, she wouldn't survive a camp. But that's not our problem. And your Christian friends? We have special methods for that kind of ideological disease." I felt something inside me break. It wasn't a bone. It was something deeper. But then he posted the last photo. And that photo cut my world in two. It was an image of our group in the basement, all kneeling, all praying, all vulnerable under the dim light of the lamp. Someone was there, or someone had planted a camera, or someone betrayed us. "We have everything," R said with a disgusting grin. "And they've already confessed. They said you were the leader. They said you influenced them all, that you brought the scriptures." I shook my head in despair. It couldn't be true. They would never do that. Suni would die before he opened his mouth. Kwan would never betray them. But the poison of doubt is slow, constant, suffocating. It knows where to strike. R sat down, crossing his legs with rehearsed elegance. "I'm going to give you one last choice, Minseo. And think carefully. There won't be a second chance." My stomach churned. "Tomorrow," he continued, "we'll take you to the industrial sector. We'll gather all the women from the factory, and we'll hold a public demonstration." He let those words linger between us. I was no longer breathing. "We've developed a new method for ideological traitors. We call it the electrical test." He then described, with the calm of someone reading the weather forecast, industrial cables connected to a voltage capable of stopping a heart in seconds. I would be forced to walk on them, in front of all my colleagues, burning alive from the inside out. "And when their bodies fall," he said, "perhaps they will think twice before repeating their mistakes." My hands began to tremble so much that they seemed to no longer belong to me. It was pure fear. Physical fear, real fear, in my stomach, in my veins, in the air. Then he pointed to the table, to the pen, to the paper. Or, you can sign. Just deny your Christ. Renounce all of this. If you do that, 6 months of re-education and you go back home. Your son grows up with his mother. Your husband continues working. You start over. He stood up, walked to the door, and touched the doorknob. You have until dawn, an entire night, to decide. And then, before leaving, he uttered the phrase that echoed in the room like a final sentence. Deny Jesus and live. When he left and the door closed behind him, I felt the weight of the choice crush my chest. It was the cruelest decision a human being could face. On the table, the photos of my family seemed to stare at me, as if asking what I would do. The pen awaited me, and the confession paper gleamed in the dim light, almost inviting me to give up. I was in tatters, weak, without water, without a voice, but still conscious enough to know that I couldn't survive that moment alone. So I closed my eyes, and with the little air that remained in my lungs, murmured the most honest prayer of my life. God, if what I read on that page is true, if you really love me as you say, I need you to listen to me now. I don't have enough courage to choose right. I have no strength at all. But you promised that your power is perfected precisely when we are weak. So here is all my weakness. All of it. I don't ask you to take away the pain. I only ask you not to let me deny you. Because if I deny you to save my body, my spirit dies forever. Just don't let go of my hand. And then something impossible happened. In that filthy cell, in the basement of a forgotten factory in a country that tries to erase God from everyone's memory, I felt something I had never experienced before. It was as if invisible arms enveloped me, as if a silent warmth filled the entire space, and above all, I felt a peace so profound that even the pain of the last few days seemed to lose its power. At that moment, I knew, regardless of what would happen when the sun rose, I had already won. They could take my body, but not the salvation that Jesus had placed within me. When R returned at dawn, his first reaction was to look at the paper. It was still completely blank. He expected to see my signature, perhaps even an apology. But what he found was nothing, and that nothing irritated him more than any response. His gaze shifted from expectation to a bitter mixture of contempt and, strangely, respect. "So that's it," he said, shaking his head. "You're worse than I thought. A fanatic." He signaled to the guards. "Get her ready for 10 o'clock, and gather all the female employees. Today, they will all learn the price of betrayal." I was dragged from my chair. My legs were trembling so much I could barely stand. As they led me out of the room, up the dark, narrow stairs I didn't even remember descending, I whispered one last prayer. "Jesus, if this is my last day, may it speak more about who you are than about who I am. May someone see, may someone believe, may this not be in vain." I had no idea, but God hadn't prepared my final moment. He had prepared a miracle. At precisely 10 o'clock, as R had instructed, they opened the cell door. One of the guards confirmed the time on his watch, as if following a script. Outside, the sky was heavy, a sad gray that heralded snow. The kind of day that seems to drain hope from even the most resistant corners of the heart. 2 guards held my arms so tightly that my feet barely touched the ground. I was barefoot, and the icy concrete burned my soles. The sound of their boots echoed down the corridor as they led me through areas of the factory I had never seen before, as if we were descending into the very stomach of the building. We turned down corridors, descended vibrating metal staircases, passed through reinforced doors, until we stopped in front of a huge industrial door, with a sign that read, "Electrical Sector, Restricted Access." When they opened that door, the cold air from inside escaped like a warning. It was a gigantic hall, almost like a hangar. The ceiling was so high it seemed to disappear. There were exposed steel beams, thick cables hanging like sleeping snakes. Enormous machines lined the walls, generators the size of trucks. It was there, in that terrifying setting, that they planned my end. And I thought I was about to die, but God was about to do something none of us expected. The air was heavy and almost unbreathable. The smell of burnt oil, rusty metal, electric ozone, and something else mingled. Something that could only be described as fear. Yes, fear has its own smell. In the center of that dark space, 2 massive steel poles stood, separated by about 5 meters, like silent sentinels of a nightmare prepared to break anyone's soul. Among them, just inches from the ground, 6 high-voltage industrial cables gleamed like black serpents, stretched taut, vibrating with deadly energy. Tiny sparks danced between the cables, casting shimmering reflections on the cold concrete. On one side, a control panel stood with its needle gauges, red switches, and warning lights flashing incessantly. 3 technicians, wearing elbow-length rubber gloves, adjusted connections, checked voltages, and jotted down numbers with tense expressions, as if every detail were a matter of life or death. Around the entire structure, my colleagues formed a semicircle, 47 women, co-workers, and for some, friends of many years. Their eyes were filled with horror. Tears streamed silently down the faces of some, while others avoided looking at me, unable to face what was about to happen. The young woman I had been at 19 seemed to watch me, frozen, as if she could already see me fallen, defeated. Commander R was perched on a small platform beside the control panel. When he saw me enter, he raised his hand, and as if by some sinister magic, the murmur of tension fell silent. His voice, cold and authoritative, echoed through the hangar. "Workers of Textile Factory Number 26, today you witness revolutionary justice in action. This woman," he said, pointing at me, "Minopark, committed the most serious crime a citizen can commit. She betrayed the motherland, poisoned her mind with foreign superstitions, and placed a false god above our supreme leader, the one who gives us everything: food, work, purpose." He paused, letting each word sink in. The silence increased the pressure on my shoulders. "The punishment will be proportional to the crime. She will walk on electrified cables carrying 380 volts of direct current. Enough voltage to stop a human heart in less than 3 seconds. If her imaginary god is real, may he save her. If not, may her death serve as an eternal warning to all of you." A murmur of terror swept through the group. Some covered their mouths with their hands, others closed their eyes, unable to continue. My own body trembled, but something inside me remained steady, breathing silently, praying without words. R stepped down from the platform and walked toward me, each step calculated, heavy. He stopped inches from my face, and his voice became almost a venomous whisper. "Last chance, Minseo. Say here, in front of everyone, that you were wrong. Say that you renounce this madness. Confess that the only true leader is our supreme leader, and this ends now." My lips were cracked and dry, almost lifeless, and yet an invisible force seemed to fill my heart. While he waited, the whole world around me seemed to fall silent. I could only hear my own breathing, feeling that each heartbeat was a moment when God reminded me, even here, I was not alone. My voice came out almost inaudible, hoarse from thirst and pain, but imbued with a firmness that I knew wasn't mine. Jesus is the Son of God. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And even if you take my life today, he has already given me eternal life. Nothing can change that. For a moment, I saw something cross R's gaze. It wasn't respect. It was a cold glint, a kind of dark satisfaction mixed with irritation. He made a short gesture with his hand. "Take off her shoes. I want her to feel every volt." The sandals, the only ones they had put on my feet to get me out of the cell, vanished in an instant. When my feet touched the icy concrete of the hangar, the cold shot up my legs as if it were rising to my chest. I was dragged to the first pole. From there, I could see every detail of the cables, the metallic sheen, the subtle vibration, the dark burn marks on the ground. I didn't know if they were signs of tests or of other people. One of the technicians, so young he looked like he was still studying, stared at R with an almost gray face. "Voltage calibrated, sir. 380 volts confirmed. 4.5 amperes. Sufficient current for immediate cardiac arrest." I felt my breath become erratic, short, almost gasping. Reality finally hit me with full force. I was about to die. It wasn't a metaphor. It wasn't a threat. It was right there, right now. I tried to pray, but the words escaped me. I could only murmur in my thoughts, "I can't, God, I can't. Help me." "Test current," shouted R. A technician pulled a large lever, and an electrical crackle echoed through the hangar. A deep hum vibrated in the air and made my chest tremble. The gauge needles jumped straight into the red zone, and the wires began to vibrate as if they were alive. Blue sparks jumped between them, leaving trails of light. The air around me heated up instantly. It was like breathing electricity. The strong smell of ozone burned my nostrils. "Power stabilized. System ready," announced the technician, his voice trembling. R approached and tilted his head slightly, like someone who already knows how the story ends. "Any last words before you see your God fail?" I opened my mouth, and what came out wasn't despair. It was adoration. "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want," I murmured, almost voicelessly. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." R turned his face away in disdain. "It's over. Take her away." I was pushed forward. I was so close to the cables I could see my distorted reflection in the dark, shiny surface. Sparks flew right in front of my feet. The buzzing seemed to fill the entire hangar. The heat burned the skin of my soles without me even touching the wires. That's when I heard an unexpected sound. A sob. I searched quickly among the women. It was her, the younger version of myself, that 19-year-old girl who worked with me. Now she was crying openly, her hands covering her chest. When our eyes met, something hit me like a wave. Faith. Not faith in myself, but faith in what God could do. Even there, that gave me a strength that didn't come from my body, which was already at its limit. It was as if God had renewed my legs just so I could stand at that moment. I closed my eyes. I blocked out the noise, the heat, the smell of electricity burning the air, and I prayed, not softly, but loudly, without shame, without fear. "Jesus, Son of God, I don't know if I have 30 more seconds to live, but if this is my last moment, may it reveal who you are. May it not be about me, but about you. And if at least one of these women can see you through this, then let happen what has to happen." And when I finished that prayer, something began to change. "Thy will be done, not mine." That was the last thing I managed to say before taking a deep breath and letting my right foot land on the first cable. The silence that filled the hangar was so absolute, it felt like even the air had stopped. I heard my own heart pounding in my chest, and it wasn't courage, it was pure fear. I could tell that all the women working with me had held their breath at the same time. The technicians standing beside the panel were as tense as taut ropes, waiting for my body to contort at the first shock. R leaned forward, prepared to witness what he believed to be my end, but nothing happened. The cable under my foot was warm, not scalding, not vibrating, just warm, as if it had been heated by someone's hands. No shock, no pain, no current running through my body. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. I opened my eyes slowly, trying to understand. The dashboard still showed maximum power. The red lights kept flashing. The electric hum vibrated in the air. But I felt absolutely nothing. "What?" I whispered, not recognizing my own voice. "This is wrong," shouted one of the technicians, running to the control panel. Despair. Real panic. "The meters are showing full load." R stiffened, his jaw locked. "Check everything. Now." The technician pulled out a portable multimeter and touched the probes to the cable, right next to my foot. Instantly, the device triggered a deafening alarm. A sharp, continuous beep. Lethal voltage. "There's current," the technician shouted, turning the multimeter around to show it. "There's real energy flowing through her. She should be dead." A murmur spread among the women. Some recoiled as if faced with something supernatural. Others approached instinctively, as if they needed to see to believe. R's face turned completely pale. "That's impossible," he murmured. "It's physically impossible." But I knew. In that instant, I knew. That wasn't physics. That wasn't a technical glitch. That was God. "Walk," R ordered, but his voice faltered at the end. "Cross." I don't know if it was faith, courage, or simply the certainty of God's presence by my side, but I took the next step. My left foot touched the second cable, then my right foot went for the third, and I kept walking, one cable at a time, the hot metal beneath my feet, sparks flying from the sides, a deep hum filling the hangar, and yet nothing touched me. It was as if an invisible barrier surrounded me, as if strong hands I couldn't see, were enveloping me, blocking that deadly current. I felt the air change, heavier, denser, more holy. The women began to cry. It wasn't fear, it was something deeper. Some fell to their knees, others raised their hands, unable to contain their emotion. The younger version of myself, that 19-year-old girl, had both hands on her face, crying as if her soul had been torn open. I reached the fourth cable, then onto the fifth, and then onto the sixth. And when both my feet touched the ground on the other side, I knew something in the world had changed forever. I turned slowly. My face was wet with tears, but not of pain, of reverence, of wonder, of gratitude so profound it felt like my chest would overflow. "Do you see?" I shouted, in a voice that seemed louder than me. "Do you see now?" Nobody was moving. Nobody was breathing. My God is real. He is more real than these wires, more real than this system, more real than any force they try to use against us. No voltage can stop his power. R couldn't answer. He looked petrified, his face drained of color, his eyes wide as if he were standing before something that shouldn't exist. The technicians took a step back, not out of fear of me, but out of fear of what they had just witnessed. A miracle. But in front of 47 women, technicians, guards, and the man who wanted to see me dead. And I knew that was just the beginning of what God was about to do. One of the guards took a hesitant step, unsure what to do. "Commander, what now?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. R didn't answer immediately. He simply stood there, motionless, staring at me as if he were facing something that shouldn't exist. It was as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. The man who moments before had spoken with such arrogance was now pale, lost, unable to comprehend what he saw. And then, something happened that I will never forget. From the middle of the group of employees, 3 women fell to their knees. They didn't look at me. They looked up, at the sky, which on that gray day couldn't even be seen. Their lips moved in silent prayer, like those who recognized that the impossible had just entered that warehouse. In that dirty and noisy hangar, in the heart of one of the most atheistic regimes in the world, the sky had touched the earth, and nobody could react. For almost a full minute, nobody moved. The technicians held their instruments like statues. The guards, with their weapons raised, seemed frozen. The women trembled with tears. And I, on the other side of the wires, felt the presence of God so strongly that it was almost palpable. The first to break that sacred silence was R. "Turn everything off," he roared, but his voice sounded different, cracked, fragile. "Now! Turn it off, now!" The technicians rushed, tripping over their own hands, trying to reach the switches. The buzzing stopped, the lights went out, and the sparks disappeared. But the silence that remained was even heavier, because everyone there knew, although no one dared to say so, that it hadn't been a technical error. It hadn't been luck. It hadn't been physical. It had been God. One of the guards, not the violent one, but the younger one, who always avoided eye contact, approached slowly. He no longer held me like a prisoner, but like someone who deserved respect, perhaps even fear. He touched my arm gently, almost reverently. "Come," he murmured, his voice low and trembling. As he guided me out, I had to squeeze past the female employees. I will never forget their faces. Some were terrified, not of me, but of what God had done. Others looked at me with a mixture of admiration and hope, and there were those who couldn't hold back the tears. The young me, the 19-year-old girl who learned from me in the basement, reached out her hand as I passed. Her fingers touched my arm for less than a second, but it was enough to hear her whisper, "Thanks." 2 older women, whom I had never seen display any emotion, were openly crying. One of them, Jiejin, moved her lips silently. I was able to read what she said. "Your God is real." When we returned to the hallway, the guard didn't push me like before. He simply opened the cell door and let me in. No handcuffs, no screaming. He closed his eyes slowly, like someone who no longer knew what to believe. Alone in there, I finally broke down. I fell to my knees and wept, not from pain, nor from terror, but from such profound relief that my whole body went weak. I was sobbing uncontrollably. I was sobbing because I didn't understand why God would choose someone like me. I wasn't strong. She wasn't brave. I was nothing special. Why would he save me in that way? And there, in that cold cell, I heard in my heart something as clear as a human voice, because they needed to see. It wasn't about you. It was about them, regarding those who now know that I am real. I cried until I had no more tears left. And then, exhausted and at peace for the first time in days, I fell asleep on the hard floor. And I slept like that, for 3 days. For hours, nobody showed up. The routine was always the same. A bit of cold rice and a glass of water would slip through the crack in the door. No guards came in. No interrogators appeared. Not a sound of footsteps in the hallway. It was as if, suddenly, I had become a problem that no one knew how to solve, and in that absolute silence, God spoke to me in a different way, not with an audible voice, but with a certainty that settled on my heart like a light yet firm weight. The message was always the same. It's not over yet. I'll get you out of here myself. Trust me. I had no idea how that would be possible, but I knew he was telling the truth. On the 4th day, the cell lock turned. It was the youngest guard, the same one who had carefully guided me after the miracle. He rushed in, looking around as if he were committing a serious crime. "I can't stay long," he whispered, "but I needed to tell you something." My heart almost stopped. "She's fine," he said, his voice low and serious. "She's alive, but that's not all. Now there are 8. "What do you mean?" I asked, almost breathless. "There are 8 women," he replied. 8 who saw everything that day. 8 who believed. They meet in secret and pray for you every night." My eyes filled with tears. 8. He began to list them. Jung, Hejin, 2 packaging techniques, 3 young seamstresses, and then he added, swallowing hard, "And my sister." My older sister was there too. She told me everything. She said she saw something impossible, and that, for the first time in her life, she believes that God might be real. I want to believe that too. Before I could even answer, he was already closing the door and practically running out. I stood there, trembling. The miracle didn't end with the power lines. The miracle was growing, multiplying. 8 lights lit in the densest darkness. I spent 72 days in that cell. 72 days without seeing the sun, without hearing my son's name, without knowing if they were alive, without any human certainty. It was like walking through a desert without a horizon. Even having witnessed God's powerful actions, the pain of daily life still stung. The biting cold, the weak muscles, the constant hunger, and the mind. The mind was the worst enemy. Sometimes I wondered, did it really happen? What if it was an illusion? What if it was a coincidence? But all I had to do was close my eyes, and I could feel the warmth beneath my feet again, the silence of the women, the peace that enveloped me, and I knew that God had been there. I knew it hadn't been my imagination. Then came the 72nd day. At 4 a.m, the door suddenly opened. It was the young guard again, but this time, panic dominated his face. "You need to leave now," he said. "There's no more time." My whole body stiffened. "What's happening?" I whispered. "R is planning something definitive, something of the kind that leaves no trace." He took a deep breath. "They're going to make you disappear." My blood ran cold. "But I can get you out of here." My sister begged me. She said she dreamed about you. She said God showed her that you need to survive, that your story needs to leave this country. My legs grew weak. "But I can't leave without my family." He squeezed my shoulders tightly. "If you go back for them now, you'll lose them all. The only way to save them is for you to survive. You need to get out and tell what you saw. On the other side, when you're safe, you'll fight for them." He handed me simple clothes, a little money, and a hand-drawn map. "There's an escape route," he explained quickly. "People who help others cross the border. Go to the Horyungjong market. It's 150 kilometers north." Then he looked me in the eyes with an intensity I never expected from a North Korean soldier. "Look for a woman selling vegetables with a red umbrella. Ask her how much the carrots cost." He paused, and when she replies, "It depends on the price," you say, "For the rest of my life." That's the password. It will take you there. When I asked her why she was risking her own life for me, she took a deep breath. Her eyes were teary, but steady. "Because I saw it," she said. "I saw with my own eyes what God did for you. If he can cut off the electricity in that place, he can change this entire nation. But nobody will know if you disappear in here. Go, tell the world. Don't let them erase what happened." She quickly guided me down a narrow service corridor, and then through a door I didn't know existed. We emerged into a silent alley, where only the wind seemed to be awake. And so, after 72 days breathing the same cold air of a cell, I was outside. Book. The morning air touched my face like a slap and a hug at the same time. The sky was clear, full of stars, so bright they seemed lit just for me. I trembled, barefoot, weak, but alive. And there, not knowing if I would ever see my son again, I began to walk north, towards the mountains, the border, and the unknown that God had already prepared. They covered 150 kilometers in 11 days. I spent most of that journey in the dark, hidden among fields and woods, fleeing patrols, sleeping in abandoned barns, eating what I found. sometimes leftovers, sometimes nothing. There was nothing heroic about it. It was hard, painful, frightening, but even so, I never truly felt alone. On some nights, when the silence was too great and fear seemed to crush me, I would feel that gentle presence again, the same one from the basement, the same one from the cell, as if someone were walking beside me, step by step, without letting me fall apart. On the 11th day, I arrived in Haryong. The market was crowded with people coming and going, and I spent hours searching until I finally saw the red umbrella. The woman was short, with hands marked by time, but with attentive eyes that seemed to see into one's soul. I asked about the carrots. She answered exactly as I was taught, and at that moment, without celebration, without announcement, my escape from North Korea truly began. Later that day, I crossed the Tumen River towards China. The water was so cold it felt like it was cutting my skin. The current was pulling at my legs. My mind screamed that I was going to die right there, but I crossed over. I reached the other shore alive. 3 months later, with the help of Chinese Christians who risked everything to protect those fleeing, I finally arrived in Seoul, free, but also broken, tired, trying to understand everything that had happened. 5 years have passed since then. Today I live in Seoul. I help other refugees, and I share this story whenever I can. My name is no longer a secret. My testimony has traveled further than I ever imagined. Even though I haven't seen my son Taemin since the day I ran away, I pray for him every night. I truly believe that God will reunite us, because the same God who held me up on electrified wires can open paths where no one sees any possibility. If this story touched your heart, please share it. There may be someone in the world who needs to hear exactly this. God still does the impossible. If you believe, declare it. Jesus is real. And to whoever is listening to or reading this testimony now, I offer the same prayer I prayed in my cell. Father, just as you made me walk on that which should have killed me, may these people walk on their own impossibilities. In the name of Jesus, amen. Your miracle, it has already begun.